Cinderella stories are a common theme throughout football and college sports, with sleeper teams going in as underdogs but capturing the hearts of millions on the way to the top. In the world of the NBA, it's not so common. In a best-of-7 scenario, it's nearly impossible to give the belt to a team almost perfectly built to make a deep playoff run. But somehow, someway, somewhere, a team known as the Pacers have captured all of our hearts, first taking out the Milwaukee Bucks pretty handily before turning and silencing Cleveland in a series that nobody in their right mind would have guessed. But from what we've seen, were we all mistaken and out of our minds to not believe in this team to begin with? And as if the insanity wasn't enough there, they dogged the Knicks with some of the craziest late game heroics that have ever been broadcast in your television set and waltzed their way to the biggest dance of all. Waiting for them at the top is by far the toughest task of all. As Kevin Garnett mentioned,
shout to OKC, man. Man, listen, they got 11 dogs. Led
by the MVP of the NBA and one of the most suffocating defenses in recent history. This was a surprise to few, but not many, as 26.5% of people picked them to win the NBA championship, and about half of bracket predictors had them making the finals. This team was built to handle the physicality of the postseason and has answered the call during their toughest test against the guys in Denver, where they went to a Game 7, followed by blowing past Ant-Man in Minnesota in just 5 games. After one of the most chaotic postseasons we've ever seen, it's finally led us to the current stage, with the top powerhouse of the league against the most unexpected underdog waiting to paint their legacies into NBA history. Hello everyone, I'm Mason, and this has been one of my favorite NBA playoffs I've seen in my entire lifetime, and while I may be a little biased, I will say that some of the upsets that we've seen, such as the Knicks beating the Celtics, the Pacers beating the Cavs, have been just incredible. And so many things had to go right for these teams to make it to where they have today. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe if you have not already. A lot of you guys are not subscribed, so you might as well help me out. I'd appreciate it a ton if you do that, so thank you. Going into the beginning of the season, a lot of people's minds had already been made up. The Boston Celtics were reigning champions and favorites to head back to the promised land once again. The Oklahoma City Thunder made some very great pickups, such as Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein in the offseason. They were labeled as one of the favorites to come out of the West as well. The Mavs looked like they could also make a leap with Derek Lively going into his second season. The Phoenix Suns getting Bradley Beal was one of the big talks of the offseason as well. And Minnesota looked to try to capitalize off of their big trade they made with New York, and the Knicks were also hoping to do the same, adding Mikal Bridges and Cat. So many big moves were made this offseason for teams to try to push to the championship. And well, it kind of worked. As we saw, the Minnesota Timberwolves made it right back to where they were after having a really rough start to their season, trying to figure out the minutes between Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert, and trying to figure out how their offense would run between Randle and Anthony Edwards. They would face some team chemistry issues at times, but overall they kind of sorted out as they got closer to April. The Denver Nuggets would also struggle to begin the season, as well as the Milwaukee Bucks, and both teams were able to pretty solidly turn their season around with two of the top MVP candidates, despite not having the best play from their co-stars. And somewhere out east, Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley would put together a very incredible season together, as well as the rest of the Cleveland Cavaliers, one of the deepest teams in the NBA, and they would dominate their way to a 60-win season, being their second highest winning season of all time, just short of LeBron's 2009 Cavs. And this Cavs team would also be the only team in the Eastern Conference to beat the Thunder in a game this season, as they were 29-1 against the East this year, with the one loss coming against the Cavs back on January 8th. And from how it appeared, Boston and Cleveland was easily going to be the matchup in the conference finals. But yet here we are today, and neither of those teams made it. The two teams that seemed nearly unbeatable in a postseason scenario, once they actually got there, saw a lot of their flaws really appear. Boston's variance in their three-point shooting, as well as a poor few games at the beginning of the series from Jason Tatum, really hurt them to start off the series down 2-0. They were unable to come back, and it really capped off with a Jason Tatum horrific injury, and I really hope he gets well soon. And well, the New York Knicks, being a team that everyone had easily written off, not beaten any of the top teams in the league, and the Cavs Cavs, the Thunder, or the Celtics this season, they looked like they were going to be free eats for Boston. I'm going to have to be honest, I got to tell on myself. I did not get to watch a lot of Pacers games this year, as they are one of my 3 teams that are blacked out. Shout out NBA League Pass. But the couple times that I did watch them this season, they were still the same identity of a team that they were last year. But what I didn't get to see was just how much of an improvement they had made. They started off the year very rough with a 9-14 record. And a lot of this was due to the injury and inconsistency of Tyrese Halliburton, especially through the first 15 games of the season. He was only averaging 15 points and 8.5 assists on 37.5% from the field and 28% from 3. Very atrocious numbers. But I think the greatest part is that Halliburton was able to finally get his season turned around, and he was even able to make the All-NBA third team. But when you really watch the Pacers, no matter what situation they're in, they always play the same brand of basketball, being selfless and team-oriented. They have times where they know when Pascal Siakam is cooking in isolation, they keep feeding him the ball. His post-ups are always very dangerous, and he could score over anyone. Let's say Halliburton has it going. If he sees an open teammate, you have 0% chance of stealing that pass, because he's one of the most efficient passers this game has ever seen. For a guy averaging 9 assists a game to only average 1.5 turnovers is something that you just don't see. He is one of the clutchest playoff performers of our lifetimes, hitting so many incredible game winners and go-ahead shots. Halliburton is shooting 12 for 14, 86% on game-tying or go-ahead shots in the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter or overtime this season, and some of them were some of the most difficult shots that we've seen. And it still speaks to how selfless this team is, that in game 1 against the Knicks, being down 17 with about 6 minutes left, they were able to feed the hot hand in Aaron Nesmith as he would not miss, hitting 6 threes and 2 free throws in just a span of 4.5 minutes, helping lead the Pacers to the comeback in which they'd win the game in overtime. And I think this has kind of showed us that star power does not mean everything in today's league. People really underestimate the value of depth and chemistry of a team and how fluid they play as a unit. And looking back at the Indiana Pacers from last year, a lot of people wrote them off very quickly, saying that their run really didn't count because of some of the teams that they faced being injured, such as the Bucks not having Giannis, the Knicks losing OG Anunoby and not having Julius Randle, and they were able to make their way to the conference finals. So going into this postseason, nobody had any expectations for the Indiana Pacers. However, they would shock the world. I personally had the Cavs winning in 6. I thought the Pacers were going to be a fun and a tough matchup. I had no idea the witchcraft they were about to perform. After going up 1-0 in the series, the Indiana Pacers would find themselves down by 20, and Tyrese Halliburton would make one of the biggest shots in Indiana Pacers history. And when the Pacers took a 2-0 lead going back home to Indiana, we all knew that was almost the end of the story for the Cavaliers. And in the Western Conference, the Wolves would find their way to the conference finals pretty handily, taking care of the Lakers, who very much exposed their lack of defense and a lack of a big man, and Julius Randle was hooping in the first 2 rounds. They would take out the Warriors, who were shorthanded without Steph Curry, but with how the Warriors had looked offensively in the playoffs up to this point, it is difficult to predict how the series would have gone if he was there. I do think they would have had a lot more of a fighting chance and possibly able to push the series to 7. The Nuggets were a little beat up going into the Thunder series, and unfortunately for them, they would come up short in a game 7. Now, I thought the Thunder would take the Wolves in 7 games and make their way to the finals, but it didn't even quite make it there, as the Wolves found one of their biggest weaknesses to be ball handling, and especially outside of Anthony Edwards, when guys like Naz Reid or Julius Randle would put the ball on the floor. And because of this, the Thunder would kind of walk their way to the NBA Finals, and I have been very impressed with some of the things they've shown us. They showed us that J-Dub can be a true number 2, a true second option, and some of his shot creation, and especially in the minutes that Shea is off the floor, is just downright ridiculous. Chet Holmgren has been very good as well, and he has come up huge with some big 3-point shots in timely manners, and especially his aggression to the basket and driving, being a lob threat for this team, has been insane. And we cannot forget about the most important part of the team dynamic, which is their defense. Guys like Caruso, Cason Wallace, Kenrich Williams, Lou Dort just just to name a few, are just downright disgusting to have to play against. And some of these guys are able to do so many things that don't show up in the stat sheet, really turning you over and causing you to have some very difficult looks at the basket and just making you have to fight for every inch of room or space that you will create. And the Pacers have been downright incredible, and everything they've done this postseason has truly impressed anyone who has been watching. We cannot forget to show love to the Knicks. Most people didn't have them getting out of the second round against Boston. It was just an impossible pick to take them over a team they hadn't seen victory against once in their 4 matchups this season. But I think one of the biggest things that people forgot about going into the playoffs was that Mitchell Robinson was such a tremendous difference maker, and especially on the defensive side of the ball, being able to hold his own out on the perimeter and really lock down the paint. And his offensive rebounding was honestly scary. We've even seen against the Pacers in this series that they've had to throw 2 or 3 guys at him at times just to keep him from hounding them on the glass. Their team defense was something that I was very impressed with, and having guys like Mikal Bridges and OG, who are such high IQ, long wingspan, smart defenders, who are able to know when to help, can cover so much ground everywhere on the floor, defend positions pretty much 1 through 5. A lot of times when the Pacers are running these handoffs, a guy like Karl Anthony Towns can get very lost in simple actions such as this, and we've seen they have been able to abuse that at times. But also some of it comes down to as simple as the Pacers have had so many great reliable shooters. When a guy like Halliburton drives and kicks it out to them, he can trust that they're going to make that shot almost every time. The Knicks have also faced some issues with their depth, trying to figure out who to play for how many minutes and how deep they should run their bench, as they've been constantly criticized for how many guys they play and not playing their bench enough. Well, when they started playing their bench in this Pacers series a couple times, it really came back to bite them. And the Pacers have shown us that they are actually one of the deepest teams in the NBA. They have so many guys who are reliable shooters, and every single person on this team, they all are such talented hustle guys. Look at a guy like TJ McConnell. Every time he's on the floor, they say he only plays at one speed, and that's go, go, go. He's just always sprinting down the floor trying to run the offense. But going into this NBA Finals series, it looks like the Pacers have finally met their match. The Oklahoma City Thunder have the depth when it comes to the defense that they would need to stop some of these guys in the Pacers. The Cavs did not have a guy like an Alex Caruso or a Lou Dort out there to try to throw at one of these guards. It's going to be very exciting to see what Indiana comes up with to try to free up a guy like Halliburton when they need him. On the other hand, is the Thunder's lack of 3-point shooting this postseason going to come back to haunt them in a game where the Pacers get hot? I think this is going to be one of the best finals matchups we've seen in a few seasons, despite what people may think. I'm very high on this Indiana Pacers team, and depending on the lineups, we might not see a lot of Isaiah Hartenstein, depending on how they want to guard Miles Turner, who is going to obviously be a problem out on the perimeter. I think I'm really just going to have to boil it down. I think I'm going to take the Thunder in 6, just because I still don't think they have a guy they can use to stop Shea. He just saw one of the top defenses in the NBA in the Minnesota Timberwolves, and he made them look completely helpless in a couple of those games, and he seriously had Jaden McDaniels rethinking life. I just want to see a great, entertaining series. Although it would hurt me some if the Pacers won, I also think it would be one of the most incredible championship runs we've ever seen, and just them getting to the finals in the first place is already unheard of. So what do you think about this year's playoffs and the teams that ended up in the finals as a whole? Let me know your pick for the finals down below, who you have and how many games. Thank you all for watching, and as always, I appreciate it very much, and see you next time,